the Henrician troops. At the back of this first column are some Elizabethan soldiers, a musketeer and 2 pikemen. And it shows, in actual fact, over 100 years, the armament of the Tudor army didn't change very much. And the other thing you'll notice is they were wearing their own clothes, because no one's thought of uniforms yet. But behind Henry and Elizabeth's troops, on comes the Civil War. 1642. This is Colonel Gilbert Talbot Regiments of Foot. Gilbert Talbot raised the whole regiment for the king, and the number 2 company, which is depicted here, held Arundel Castle, just along the coast, for Charles I. It fell in the end, of course, after a great siege in 1643, but it held out until then. And you'll notice immediately the big difference between the 2 groups of soldiers. Looking up the hill on the left, the Henrician and Elizabethan spearmen and archer and shot look very much like individuals in their ordinary working clothes, which is exactly what they are. But they have been mustered into the army to defend the English state. On the right-hand side of our display area, a regimental unit. You can tell it's a regiment or a company regiment because they're all wearing a uniform. This is only just a year in 1642, and in fact the armies were so incredibly disorganised at the start of the Civil War that some regiments didn't have a uniform at all. This particular uniform is a mustard yellow coat. The Civil War saw armies of both sides wearing coats of many different colours, and it took to the end of the Civil War before one side, the Parliamentary Army, under Lord Fairfax and later Lord Cromwell, thought of actually wearing the same uniform, which was a red coat, which has remained the same ever since. The Civil War troops have deployed into open order. You can see they consist of 2 ranks. They are shot and the halberd men, the half-pikes. Civil War armies tended to carry 18-foot pikes into battle. These, however, being a garrison company, don't need long pikes, exactly being away. But they're designed to be short pikes to put people on the top of stage ladders trying to get up the walls of Arundel Castle.
Get fire! Get fire!
The loud bang is from a ramparts gun, which is a giant musket used to shoot down from the ramparts. There are 2 muskets and a carbine also firing. Now the halberdier men are advancing through the musketeers to protect them while they load. And this will be done in mass formation. On the left, you can see the Tudor spearmen marching around the side of the soldiers about to open fire on their target. Now, of course, open fire is a relatively modern term, because until the invention of gunpowder, it was meaningless. You didn't fire with a bow, you shot or loosed with a bow. And the Tudor armies still had bowmen, but they were bringing in handgunners. And the reason was very simple. Bowmen take years to train. A man armed with a primitive caliber, that's the predecessor of a musket, only took 2 weeks to train, which made it cheaper and more expendable. It means you could raise larger armies, and it means you could mass produce the guns, much easier than bowmen. Bowmen may have been more deadly at this time, but the guns were cheaper. And on they come. You'll notice how slow these muskets are to load, very slow, and no one's invented a bayonet yet, and so if they're attacked by cavalry while they're reloading, these men are dead, and that's why you need pikemen to protect them. The pikemen, the half-pikemen, are forming into column, and Colonel Gilbert Talbot's 2nd Company will now march down the field. You'll notice the NCO on the left of their column with a red sash denoting that he's a royalist. The officer and the ensign and drummer marching to the head of the column. Very well drilled. In fact, a lot of Civil War troops weren't very well drilled, but these ones are. Over on the left, the musketeer of the Tudor army fires again. You'll notice how very, very different their dress is from the Civil War. The hats in the Tudor period were much smaller. Some of them wore still helmets and sort of floppy caps, really. The Civil War developed very quickly into pikemen armed with pikes and sometimes breastplates and a steel helmet called a morion, and the musketeers tending to wear wide-brimmed hats, although sometimes they had what was known as a secret, an iron skull cap underneath to protect them from sword cuts. At this era as well, the cavalry began to ascend the battlefield again, and in great Civil War battles there'd be almost as many cavalry as there were infantry in some engagements. All orders and marching done to the sound of the drum. Very important in Civil War armies. See how large the Civil War flag is? It's 6'6" square. It has to be large, otherwise you'd lose it in the smoke and can't find out where you are. The counter march continues. The pikemen well drilled. The charming name for the Civil War drill is known as carrying out your postures. And that's what they are, carrying out their Civil War postures. And now with the final few shots of the Tudor troops, we're ending this part of our display. And indeed, Colonel Gilbert Talbot's regiment, the 2nd Company of which is here, is marching up purposefully to the top of the field to begin their march off the field. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now seen right the way through from 1540 to 1642, another 100 years. When a final shot by the Tudor people, please may I ask you to show your appreciation for the Company of Ordnance and the siege group.